The Galactic Military Academy's training deck buzzed with nervous energy as 200 cadets from across 17 different species stood in perfect formation. Well, mostly perfect. Cadet Maya Torres from Sol 3, better known as Earth, stood slightly out of line, her human stubbornness already marking her as different. Commander Vex 9, a towering Zentorian with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like liquid mercury, surveyed the group with all 6 of his compound eyes. His mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. Welcome, young beings, to your final combat assessment. Today, you will face the Mortality Maze, a test that has claimed the careers of 37% of all cadets who have attempted it. A collective shudder rippled through the assembled cadets. The Mortality Maze was legendary, a holographic nightmare designed by the most sadistic military minds in the galaxy. It tested everything: reflexes, tactical thinking, endurance, and, most importantly, the will to survive when everything went wrong. Standing 3 rows ahead of Maya, Cadet Krex Valor puffed out his chest plates. The Gorvanian was built like a living tank, with natural armor plating that could deflect plasma rounds and strength that could crush steel. His species had conquered 12 systems before joining the Galactic Federation, and he never let anyone forget it. His amber eyes swept the crowd until they landed on the lone human. "Look at that," Krex Valor whispered to his companion, loud enough for half the formation to hear. "They actually let a Deathworlder into the program? How adorable." His friend, a spindly Arcturian named Zip-12, giggled nervously. "Isn't that the species that comes from the Nightmare Planet? The one with the acid rain and the predators that hunt in packs?" "Oh, you mean the soft-skinned bipeds who cry when they stub their tiny toes?" Krex Valor's laugh sounded like grinding gears. "I heard their homeworld is so dangerous, they had to invent something called safety regulations just to survive their own technology." Pathetic. Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes forward. She had heard it all before. Ever since arriving at the Academy 6 months ago, she had endured constant commentary about her species' supposed fragility. Never mind that humans were one of only 3 species in known galactic history to achieve faster-than-light travel before making first contact. Never mind that Earth's biodiversity made most other worlds look like sterile laboratories. "I wonder," Krex Valor continued, his voice dripping with mock concern, "if they'll have to design a special easy mode for the little human. Maybe replace all the plasma cannons with foam darts? We wouldn't want her to get hurt and cry for her mommy." A few cadets snickered. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides, her knuckles going white. The Gorvanian wasn't done. "Tell me, Deathworlder." Krex Valor turned to address her directly, his voice booming across the deck. "When you inevitably wash out in the first 30 seconds, will you do that thing humans do where water leaks from your optical organs? I've heard it's quite the spectacle." Commander Vex 9's compound eyes swiveled toward the disruption, but he made no move to intervene. The Academy believed in letting cadets settle their own disputes, as long as no one died permanently. Maya finally turned to face Krex Valor, her brown eyes meeting his amber ones without flinching. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You know, Krex, I've been wondering something myself." The Gorvanian's chest plates flared with surprise. Few cadets dared to address him so casually. "Oh? And what might that be? Soft skin?" "I've been wondering," Maya continued, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "if your species evolved from scavengers. You know, the kind that wait for the real predators to finish their hunt before swooping in to pick at the scraps." The snickering stopped abruptly. Krex Valor's amber eyes flashed dangerously. Calling a Gorvenian a scavenger was one of the deepest insults possible in their culture. "Because," Maya pressed on, her voice still maddeningly calm, "you seem really good at picking on what you think is easy prey. But I've noticed you don't say much when Commander Vex 9 is demonstrating combat techniques. Or when the Void Stalker instructors are around. Funny how brave you get when you think you've found something smaller than yourself." The deck had gone dead silent. Even Commander Vex 9 seemed interested in the exchange now, his mandibles twitching with what might have been amusement. Krex Valor's massive frame trembled with rage. "You dare compare me to a bottom feeder? You pathetic little—" "Enough!" Commander Vex 9's voice cut through the tension like a plasma blade. "Save your aggression for the maze, cadets. You'll need every bit of it." The commander's 6 eyes fixed on Maya and Krex Valor in turn. "Since you two seem so eager to prove yourselves, perhaps you'd like to go first." A little friendly competition to warm up the crowd. Maya felt her stomach drop, but she kept her expression neutral. Going first meant facing the maze at its most unpredictable. The holographic systems were notorious for their creative interpretations of maximum difficulty. "I'd be delighted," Krex Valor growled, his chest plates still flared with indignation. "It will be amusing to watch the Deathworlder break." "Outstanding!" Commander Vex 9 clicked his mandibles together. "Cadet Torres, Cadet Krex Valor, you have 15 minutes to prepare. The rest of you, observe carefully. One of these cadets is about to learn a very valuable lesson about underestimating one's opponent." As the other cadets dispersed to the observation gallery, Maya found herself alone on the prep deck. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, centering herself the way her grandfather had taught her during those long summers at his dojo back on Earth. "Focus on what you can control," she whispered to herself. "Everything else is just noise." "Talking to yourself already?" Krex Valor had approached while she was meditating, his heavy footsteps somehow silent until he wanted to be heard. "That's the first sign of a broken mind, you know. My people have a saying, the prey always reveals itself before the hunt begins." Maya opened her eyes and looked up at the towering Gorvanian. Up close, his natural armor was even more impressive, with ridged plates that overlapped like scales. His 4 arms were each as thick as her torso, ending in hands that could probably crush her skull without effort. "Your people have a lot of sayings," she observed. "Mine have one too. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Though personally, I've always preferred, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." Krex Valor snorted, a sound like escaping steam. More Deathworlder poetry. How quaint. "Tell me, when you're lying in the medical bay after this is over, will you compose a little verse about how you should have stayed home on your safe little world?" "Actually," Maya stood up, rolling her shoulders to loosen the tension, "I was thinking more about composing a verse about overconfident bullies who let their mouths write checks their skills can't cash. But I guess we'll find out which one of us needs a poet in about 10 minutes. The Gorvanian's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a chime echoed across the prep deck. Commander Vex 9's voice followed immediately after. "Cadets Torres and Krex Valor, report to the maze entry points. All other cadets, take your positions in the observation gallery. Today's simulation parameters are as follows: urban warfare scenario, hostile environment, limited ammunition, multiple objectives. Survival is not guaranteed. Medical teams are standing by. Maya felt her heart rate spike, but she forced herself to walk calmly toward entry point Alpha. The Mortality Maze consisted of two parallel courses that would eventually converge, allowing the competing cadets to either help or hinder each other depending on their tactical choices. Most cadets tried to complete their objectives as quickly as possible to avoid encountering their opponent. The smart ones, anyway. As she approached the entry portal, a shimmering field of energy that would transport her into the holographic environment, Maya could hear Krex Valor at the neighboring entry point, loudly predicting her imminent failure to anyone within earshot. 5 minutes maximum, he was saying. These Deathworlders fold the moment they face real pressure. Watch how quickly she calls for extraction when the simulation starts targeting her specifically. Maya stepped up to her portal and placed her hand on the palm scanner. Immediately, her vital signs appeared on screens throughout the observation gallery. Heart rate elevated but stable. Blood pressure normal. Stress hormones within acceptable ranges. For a Deathworlder facing the Mortality Maze, she seemed remarkably calm. Cadet Torres, Commander Vex 9's voice came through the portal's comm system. Are you prepared to begin? Maya looked up at the observation gallery, where nearly 200 faces stared down at her. Some looked curious, others skeptical. A few actually seemed hopeful. But most were waiting to see the human fail, to confirm their preconceptions about Deathworlder fragility. Her eyes found Krex Valor at the neighboring portal. The Gorvanian was flexing his forearms in an intimidating display, his chest plates gleaming under the harsh lights. He caught her looking and made an exaggerated gesture of polishing his natural armor. Maya smiled, the same calm expression that had unsettled him earlier. Then she did something that made the entire observation gallery fall silent. She laughed. Not a nervous giggle or a forced chuckle, but a genuine, delighted laugh that echoed through the prep chamber, as if she had just heard the funniest joke in galactic history. "Oh, absolutely, Commander," she said, still chuckling. "I've been looking forward to this all semester." Commander Vex 9's mandibles twitched, with what definitely looked like amusement now. "Very well, Cadet Torres. And you, Cadet Krex Valor?" The Gorvanian tore his gaze away from Maya, confusion written across his features. Whatever reaction he had expected, laughter wasn't it. Yes, Commander. Ready to demonstrate proper military excellence." "Excellent. Simulation parameters are loading now. You will have access to standard combat gear, but ammunition is limited to what you can carry. The environment will be hostile in multiple ways. Your objectives will be revealed once the simulation begins. Remember, cadets, in the Mortality Maze, there are no participation awards. You either succeed, or you provide a valuable lesson for your classmates about the consequences of failure. The portals began to glow brighter, reality warping at their edges as the holographic systems prepared to transport both cadets into the simulated nightmare that had broken so many before them. Maya took one last look at Krex Valor, who was still staring at her with a mixture of confusion and growing unease. His earlier confidence seemed to be wavering, replaced by the unsettling realization that maybe, just maybe, he didn't understand his opponent as well as he thought he did. "See you on the other side," Maya called out cheerfully. "Try not to trip over your own ego on the way in." Before Krex Valor could respond, both portals flared with blinding light, and the two cadets vanished into the Mortality Maze. The observation gallery erupted in excited chatter as the main display screens flickered to life, showing split-screen views of both cadets materializing in what appeared to be a war-torn city under a blood-red sky. Strange, twisted architecture stretched in all directions, with buildings that seemed to shift and change when no one was looking directly at them. Commander Vex 9's voice cut through the noise. Settle down, cadets. Class is now in session. Today's lesson: never assume you know what a Deathworlder is capable of until you've seen them fight for their life. On the screens, both Maya and Krex Valor were getting their bearings in the hostile environment. The Gorvanian immediately began moving toward what looked like the most obvious objective point, his natural armor gleaming as he bulldozed through obstacles with brute force. Maya, however, had gone completely still. She stood in the center of a destroyed plaza, her head tilted slightly, as if she was listening to something the others couldn't hear. Her vitals remained steady, but there was something in her posture, something in the way she held herself, that made several of the more experienced cadets in the observation gallery lean forward with interest. "What's she doing?" Zip 12 whispered. "Why isn't she moving?" An older cadet, a scarred Void Walker veteran named Thane 6, smiled grimly. "She's hunting," he said quietly. "Look at her stance, the way she's processing her environment. That's not fear, that's predatory focus. I've seen it before." "In Deathworlders?" someone asked. "No," Thane 6 replied, his voice barely audible. "In Apex Predators." On screen, Maya's eyes suddenly snapped open, bright and alert. She had been still for exactly 37 seconds, and in that time, she had apparently learned something that made her smile, that same unsettling smile from the prep deck. She reached for her weapon, checked her ammunition count, and then did something that made even Commander Vex 9's 6 compound eyes widen with surprise. Instead of heading toward the obvious objectives like Krex Valor, Maya Torres turned and walked directly into the darkest, most dangerous-looking part of the simulated city. The part where the maze's defensive systems would be at their most creative and lethal. She was hunting, all right, but not for objectives. She was hunting for the maze itself. "By the void," Commander Vex 9 muttered, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "She's not trying to survive the simulation. She's trying to break it." And in that moment, as Maya Torres disappeared into the shifting shadows of the Mortality Maze's most lethal sector, every being in the observation gallery began to realize that they might have seriously underestimated exactly what kind of predator they were dealing with. The real show was about to begin. Inside the Mortality Maze, Maya Torres moved like liquid shadow through the twisted urban landscape. The simulated city around her pulsed with malevolent energy, buildings stretching and warping as the holographic systems tried to disorient her. Overhead, the blood-red sky crackled with artificial lightning that illuminated scenes of devastation in stark, horrifying detail. Most cadets would have been overwhelmed by now. The maze was designed to assault every sense simultaneously. The acrid smell of burning metal, the constant low-frequency hum that made teeth ache, the way shadows moved independently of their sources. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Maya breathed it in like mountain air. "Fascinating," she murmured, pressing herself against a wall that felt uncomfortably warm. Subsonic frequency manipulation, olfactory assault, visual distortion through rapid environmental shifts. Someone really put thought into this torture chamber. Her earpiece crackled with static before Commander Vex 9's voice came through. "Cadet Torres, your first objective marker is northeast of your position. Standard protocol is to—" "With respect, Commander," Maya interrupted. "Standard protocol is for standard cadets. I'm not interested in following the breadcrumbs." In the observation gallery, stunned silence greeted this declaration. Cadets simply didn't interrupt their commanding officers. They especially didn't announce their intention to ignore direct orders. Commander Vex 9's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Explain your reasoning, Cadet." "The Mortality Maze isn't really about completing objectives," Maya said, ducking as something that looked like a mechanical spider the size of a hover car skittered overhead. It's about breaking us down psychologically. Every cadet who's failed has followed the same pattern. Chase the obvious goals, get worn down by the environmental hazards, make increasingly desperate decisions until they crack. She paused at an intersection where 3 streets converged in geometrically impossible ways. But the maze has weaknesses. It has to. Otherwise, no one would ever pass, and that would defeat the purpose of the test. On the split-screen display, Krex Valor was making impressive progress toward his first objective. His natural armor deflected most of the environmental hazards, and his 4-armed combat style was devastatingly effective against the simulated enemies. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never met a problem that couldn't be solved with superior firepower and overwhelming strength. "Look at him go," Zip-12 commented admiringly. "The Deathworlder is probably already crying somewhere while Krex shows us how real warriors handle adversity." Thane 6, the scarred Voidwalker, wasn't watching Krex Valor's screen. His attention remained fixed on Maya's feed, where the human had begun doing something unprecedented in Mortality Maze history. She was mapping the glitches. "Incredible," he whispered. "She's treating it like a puzzle instead of a survival scenario." Maya had noticed that certain environmental distortions followed patterns. The shifting buildings moved in predictable cycles. The mechanical spiders followed specific patrol routes. Even the psychological warfare had timing to it. Where most cadets saw chaos, she saw system architecture. "Every program has exploits," she said to herself, pulling out a piece of equipment most cadets ignored, the standard-issue environmental scanner. While others used it to detect immediate threats, Maya was using it to analyze the maze's underlying code structure. She found what she was looking for in a section of the city where reality seemed particularly unstable. A building that flickered between 3 different architectural styles, never quite settling on one. The scanner showed massive data conflicts in that area. "Gotcha," Maya grinned. Instead of avoiding the glitched building like any sane person would, she walked straight toward it. The environmental hazards intensified as she approached. The subsonic frequency shifted to a pitch that made her vision blur. The air itself seemed to thicken, requiring effort to breathe. Warning alarms began blaring in her earpiece. "Cadet Torres," Commander Vex 9's voice was sharp with concern. "You are approaching a critically unstable zone. Recommend immediate retreat." "Negative, Commander. I'm exactly where I need to be." Maya reached the building's entrance just as it flickered from a military bunker to an alien temple, to something that hurt to look at directly. She stepped inside during the transition, and immediately fell through what should have been solid floor. The observation gallery gasped collectively as Maya's vital signs spiked, and her visual feed went chaotic. For 30 seconds, the screen showed nothing but swirling colors and error messages. "Medical team to stand by," Commander Vex 9 ordered. "Prepare for emergency extraction." Then, suddenly, Maya's feed stabilized. She was standing in what appeared to be the maze's control center, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and processing nodes that definitely weren't part of the cadet simulation. "Well, well," Maya said, looking around with obvious delight. Behind the curtain at last! She had done the impossible. She had hacked the Mortality Maze by exploiting a glitch in its reality rendering, essentially breaking into the simulation's administrative level. From here, she could see everything: Krex Valor's position, the locations of all objectives, the planned environmental hazards, even the psychological profiles the system was using to craft personalized torments for each cadet. "This is unprecedented," Commander Vex 9 muttered. In 300 years of Academy history, no cadet has ever. His words were cut off as alarms began blaring throughout the real facility. Not the simulated ones in the maze, but actual emergency klaxons in the Academy itself. "What's happening?" someone in the observation gallery shouted. The answer came from the main tactical display, where a priority alert was flashing in urgent red letters. "Actual hostile contact. This is not a drill. Raider fleet detected in system. All combat-capable personnel report to stations." The Skaxian Raiders had chosen this moment, when the Academy's best instructors were focused on the cadet evaluations, to launch a surprise attack. Their sleek predatory ships were already engaging the orbital defense platforms, their distinctive energy signatures painting deadly patterns across space. "All cadets evacuate to emergency shelters immediately," Commander Vex 9 ordered. "This facility is now under—" "Commander," Maya's voice cut through the chaos from inside the maze's control center. "Don't evacuate the cadets. Weaponize them." Every eye in the observation gallery turned to her screen. Maya was standing amid the holographic displays, her expression intense and focused. She had access to more tactical information than anyone else in the facility. "The Raiders are using the Academy's own defensive patterns against us," she continued, her fingers dancing across control interfaces. "They've been studying our training simulations, learning our standard responses. But they don't know about the Mortality Maze's advanced combat protocols." "Cadet Torres, you are speaking outside your authority," Commander Vex 9 began. "Sir, with respect, I'm the only person currently inside the most advanced tactical simulation system in known space. I can reprogram the maze to run actual combat scenarios instead of training exercises. Every cadet here can pilot defensive drones, coordinate firing solutions, manage tactical networks. We're not helpless children. We're military personnel who happen to be in training." She paused, looking directly into the visual pickup. "Unless, of course, you prefer to trust our lives to whatever backup plans the Raiders didn't account for." The debate might have continued, but it was interrupted by Krex Valor's voice over the general communication channel. The Gorvanian had heard everything from inside his own simulation. "The Deathworlder is right," he said grudgingly. "I may not like her methods, but she's proven she understands systems better than any of us. If she says she can turn this training facility into a weapon, I believe her." A murmur of agreement rose from the observation gallery. Even the cadets who had been mocking Maya minutes earlier could see the tactical reality. The Academy's defenses were failing. The Raiders were closing in. And their best chance of survival was trusting their lives to the human who had just done the impossible. "Very well, Cadet Torres," Commander Vex 9 decided. "You have command authority for tactical coordination. All cadets are to follow your instructions until this crisis is resolved." Maya's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Understood, Commander. Krex Valor, I'm extracting you from your simulation and patching you into the tactical network. I need someone who can coordinate the heavy assault protocols." "You're putting me in charge of weapons?" The Gorvanian sounded surprised. "You're good at breaking things," Maya said matter-of-factly. "Right now, that's exactly what I need. Everyone else, listen carefully. We're about to show these Raiders why you never attack a military academy full of motivated cadets who have nothing left to lose." What happened next would be studied in tactical academies across the galaxy for generations. Maya turned the Mortality Maze into the most sophisticated combat coordination system ever deployed in active warfare. Every cadet became a node in a vast tactical network, their training simulations seamlessly transitioning into real combat scenarios. Instead of facing holographic enemies, they were suddenly piloting actual defensive drones, coordinating real weapon systems, analyzing actual enemy movements. The raiders had expected to face tired instructors and panicked students. Instead, they found themselves confronting 200 highly trained military cadets working in perfect coordination under the guidance of someone who understood their attack patterns better than they did themselves. Maya, from her position in the maze's control center, orchestrated the defense like a symphony conductor. She identified weak points in the raider formations, predicted their tactical shifts, and coordinated counterattacks with precision that left even Commander Vex 9 speechless. Krex Valor. Redirect Drone Formation 7 to intercept the flanking maneuver at Grid Reference Alpha 9, she ordered. Zip 12. I need you to manage point defense for Sector 4. Thane 6. You're our ace in the hole. Wait for my signal, then hit them with everything we've got. The battle raged for 2 hours. When it was over, the Skaxian raider fleet was either destroyed or retreating in disarray. The Academy's defense grid, coordinated by 200 cadets under Maya's tactical leadership, had achieved a victory that would have been impressive for a full military fleet. In the aftermath, as emergency crews worked to repair battle damage and medical teams treated the few injuries among the defenders, Maya finally emerged from the Mortality Maze. She looked tired but satisfied, like someone who had just solved a particularly challenging puzzle. Commander Vex 9 was waiting for her, along with what appeared to be half the Academy's senior staff. Cadet Torres, he began formally, your actions today have saved countless lives and demonstrated tactical innovation beyond anything in Academy records. However, you also violated direct orders, compromised military systems without authorization, and essentially staged a coup during a crisis situation. Maya nodded calmly. Yes, sir, I did. Therefore, the commander continued, it is my duty to inform you that you are no longer a cadet at this academy. A collective intake of breath from the assembled crowd. Maya's expression didn't change. Instead, Commander Vex 9's mandibles clicked in what was definitely amusement now. You are hereby granted field promotion to lieutenant and assigned as the Academy's new Director of Advanced Tactical Innovation. Your first assignment is to completely redesign our combat training protocols based on today's performance. The cheers from the other cadets were deafening. Even Krex Valor, his earlier arrogance completely gone, was applauding enthusiastically. One question, Lieutenant Torres, Commander Vex 9 said as the noise died down. How did you know the raiders would attack today? Maya's smile was enigmatic. I didn't, sir. But humans have a saying, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I just made sure I understood every system I might need to use. The raiders attacking during the evaluation was coincidence. Being ready for it wasn't. Later, as the cadets celebrated their victory and their survival, Krex Valor approached Maya at the officers' lounge. The massive Gorvanian looked sheepish, his earlier bravado completely absent. Lieutenant Torres, he began awkwardly, I owe you an apology. And my life, apparently. Maya looked up from her tactical reports. You don't owe me anything, Krex. You performed exceptionally today. That weapons coordination was flawless. But I was wrong about you. About humans. I thought Deathworlders were weak because you cry when you're hurt, because you have safety regulations, because you seem so fragile compared to species like mine. Maya set down her datapad and studied the Gorvanian thoughtfully. You know what the real difference is between humans and most other species, Krex? What? Most species evolved on worlds that were trying to kill them slowly. Hostile environments, predators, natural disasters. They developed thick skin, natural armor, enhanced strength, all the obvious adaptations for surviving external threats. She gestured toward the viewport, where the debris of the Raider fleet still glittered in space. Earth tried to kill us quickly. We didn't have time to grow armor or develop enhanced strength. Instead, we developed enhanced brains. We learned to outthink our problems, to work together, to turn our environment into a weapon when necessary. Maya smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't unsettling. It was warm, genuine, almost maternal. You see crying as weakness. We see it as communication. You see safety regulations as cowardice. We see them as learning from mistakes. You see fragility as vulnerability. We see it as motivation to get creative. Krex Valor was quiet for a long moment. I think I understand now why they call your world a death world. Oh? Maya raised an eyebrow. It's not because it's the most dangerous planet in known space, the Gorvanian said slowly. It's because it produces the most dangerous predators in known space. Ones that look harmless until you threaten something they care about. Maya laughed, the same delighted sound that had echoed through the prep chamber before their fateful test. Now you're learning, Krex. Now you're learning. Outside the viewport, the stars shone peacefully over the Galactic Military Academy, where 200 cadets had just learned the most important lesson in military history. Never underestimate a Deathworlder with something to prove. The Mortality Maze had claimed many careers over the years, but today, for the first time in its 300-year history, the maze itself had been conquered, repurposed, and turned into the weapon that saved them all. And it had been done by a human who laughed in the face of impossible odds. Because that's what humans do when they're having fun.